The void held its breath, far from the spiral arms of any known galaxy, where starlight was a myth, and the only warmth was the manufactured glow of a failing ship. A single, crystalline melody drifted. It was a simple tune, played on a salvaged alien instrument, 3 notes repeated, like a persistent, gentle heartbeat in the silence of deep space. Below the deck plates, the airlock seal was hemorrhaging atmosphere, a whisper of a dying breath. But Alistair didn't move. He kept playing. He was playing for the ship, for the weary crew, and most of all, for the fragile, amber-skinned being huddled in the corner. That being, a refugee from a dead world, listened with eyes that held the terrifying memory of silence. In the face of ultimate peril, it wasn't the weapons that mattered. It was the quiet, undeniable promise of a song. What if the grandest act of human defiance was simply the refusal to let a melody die? Alistair Corwin was not a warrior or an explorer of the star charts. He was a maintenance engineer, a humble architect of metal and circuitry. His emotional world was defined by the predictable, comforting rhythm of diagnostic scans and the satisfying click of a perfectly tightened gravimetric clamp. Yet, he lived on the Arcturus Hearth, a vessel that was anything but predictable. It was a refugee transport, a lumbering ark carrying remnants of disparate species fleeing the Veil's scar, a cataclysmic phenomenon that erased entire systems with cold, surgical precision. Alistair's personal space, a tiny cabin tucked beside the primary power conduits, smelled perpetually of ozone and well-oiled machinery. On his desk, next to the schematics for the life support scrubbers, sat a faded photograph, his grandmother, standing beside a wind-battered seawall on old Earth, her face creased with the quiet wisdom of a person who had seen storms pass. Her parting words, "Even the biggest ship is just a million small parts working together, Alistair. Look after the parts, and the ship will look after you," echoed in his mind, becoming his unintended philosophy in this cosmic diaspora. The current atmosphere aboard the Arcturus Hearth was one of strained resilience. The crew was a patchwork of species, stoic, 6-limbed xylos from the frozen moons of Kepler 186f, the perpetually shimmering gas form Adira, and a handful of exhausted humans. The largest and most vulnerable group, however, were the Cathara, the amber-skinned beings Alistair was currently focused on. They were gentle, highly empathetic creatures, their civilization built on shared emotional resonance rather than technology. They were refugees twice over, having first fled their homeworld only to be abandoned by a supposedly protective faction. It was one young Cathara named Kale who Alistair's thoughts most occupied. Kale had seen the Veil's scar consume his home. He rarely spoke, communicating instead through subtle shifts in his amber skin tone, a muted blue for distress, a pale green for confusion. He had been found tucked into a shattered escape pod, clutching the peculiar crystalline instrument. Alistair had been trying to repair the ship's antiquated emotional dampening field. It was a necessary evil. The sheer volume of shared fear from thousands of refugees, particularly the highly sensitive Cathara, threatened to overload the psychological stability of the entire ship. The system needed a rare alloy, a mending strand,
only found in the remnants of a destroyed mining station near the now forbidden border of the Veil Scar. The mission was dangerous, a calculated risk to maintain the sanity of everyone on board. "The field is failing, Alistair," Commander Ilara told him during their last briefing. "The Cathara are feeling everything. The panic is compounding. We need that strand, and we need it now." Alistair, tracing the holographic wiring diagram with a steady finger, simply nodded. "I understand, Commander. The risks are substantial, but so is the reward. Emotional unity is a wonderful thing, Ilara, but a collapsing emotional field is a silent bomb." That night, as the Arcturus Hearth drifted toward the broken silence of the mining station, Alistair sat with Kale. The young Cathara was tracing the pattern of the ship's hull, the low thrum of the engines seeming to vibrate through his entire body. Alistair pulled out a small, portable toolkit, not a technical one, but a simple set of carving tools. He began to shape a small piece of wood into the form of a bird, something Kale would have never seen in his deep space existence. "It's a starling," Amurister murmured, his voice low and rhythmic. "On my homeworld, they fly in massive flocks, moving as one, Kale. No single leader, just millions of small decisions all moving together, creating a beautiful pattern. That's what we are too, on this ship, a flock." Kale's amber skin momentarily flushed a delicate, reassuring gold. It was a tiny seed of connection planted in the deep, cold loam of fear. Alistair knew that the true strength of humanity wasn't in the Arcturus Hearth's plasma shields, but in the quiet capacity for the patience to carve a little bird and wait for a flash of gold. The foreshadowing was clear. The coming challenges would test not their technology, but their capacity to move as one, to remain a flock.
The approach to the abandoned mining station, designated Sorrow's End, was a study in atmospheric dread. The station was a tangled, silent monument to cosmic greed, half devoured by a gravitational anomaly, an embryonic black hole that pulsed with a slow, grinding rhythm. Alistair, along with a Xylo named Tivek, a seasoned pilot whose 4 eyes saw in 4 spectra, making her invaluable in the debris field, and a security officer named Jana, a human whose calming low voice was a counterpoint to her fierce loyalty, took the single shuttle, the Lantern. As they maneuvered through the skeletal remains of the station, the debris field was thick with metallic ghosts. Alistair, watching the scanners, felt a familiar pull, not of gravity, but of responsibility. He wasn't just searching for the mending strand, he was searching for a missing piece of hope. Scans indicate the highest concentration of the strand is in Sector Gamma 9. It's near the core reactor chamber. High radiation. We have a 3-hour window maximum. Just as they secured the shuttle to a docking clamp, a new signal pierced the silence. Not the static of dead technology, but a low, wavering distress beacon. It was incredibly weak, layered beneath the station's white noise, and it wasn't a standard, known galactic call. "Jana, analyze that signal," Alistair ordered, his heart beginning to beat with a slow, deliberate cadence. "Tivek, hold the lantern. It's not from the station's manifest." Jana worked quickly, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Alistair, it's an unregistered life sign, weak, but there. It's coming from Sector Alpha 4, nowhere near the strand. Low gravity,
highly volatile atmosphere. It sounds like a child's cry translated through a simple, broken vocoder. Here was the ethical choice, the first great test. Their mission was clear: secure the strand and return to save the thousands of refugees on the Arcturus Hearth. Diverting to the unknown signal was a risk of time, resources, and their own lives. The strand is the priority, T-Vex stated, her tone pragmatic, but with a slight, almost imperceptible tremor in her usually steady voice. One life, perhaps, versus thousands. Alistair stared at the life sign blip. He thought of Kyle, of the small, silent terror in the Cathera's eyes. He thought of his grandmother's words about the importance of every single part. We're not leaving a child to die, not when we have the power to help. We split. Jana and I proceed to Gamma 9 for the strand. T-Vec, you pilot a remote drone to Alpha 4, using the lantern's life support to sustain whatever you find. We meet back here in 1 hour. If we miss the window, we miss the strand. Understood? There was a long silence, broken only by the crackle of static. Then Jana placed a hand on his shoulder. I'm with you, engineer. T-Vec gave a dry, metallic sigh. Humanity's fatal flaw, compulsive compassion. Very well. 1 hour. Alistair and Jana proceeded through the silent, oppressive corridors toward Gamma 9. The station was a labyrinth of twisted metal and frozen coolant, a graveyard of ambition. Jana's calm presence was a balm. She moved with a quiet, efficient grace, her pulse rifle held steady but low, a gesture of respect rather than aggression. As they neared the reactor core, they passed through the station's former residential sector. The devastation was absolute, yet strangely poignant. A single, small, charred toy lay in a patch of dust, a simple wooden block. Alistair stopped and gently picked it up. He thought of the simple starling he was carving for Kyle. The atmosphere suddenly shifted, not in the air quality, but in a profound sense of dread. The emotional dampening field of the Arcturus Hearth must be critically low, and the shared terror of the thousands of refugees was leaking out across the vast distance, magnified by the psychic instability of the Veilskar's nearby influence. Jana staggered, clutching her head. Alistair, it's the panic. A wave. I can feel the absolute paralyzing fear of them all. It's overwhelming. Alistair felt it too, a cold, sickening paralysis that begged him to turn and run, to abandon the task. He closed his eyes and forced himself to breathe in the rhythm of the crystalline song Kyle played. 3 notes, gentle, persistent. He focused not on the terror, but on the image of Kyle's rare, golden flush. Focus, Jana, he whispered, his voice trembling but steady. We're just the conduit. Focus on what we're building, not what we're fighting. We are building a safe place, a home. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the small, half-carved wooden starling. He placed it in Jana's hand, the simple, non-technological object, a testament to slow, patient creation, acted as a spiritual anchor. Jana stared at the rough shape, and the tide of cosmic terror seemed to recede just enough for her to stand. They found the mending strand, a shimmering, crystalline bundle tucked inside a maintenance hatch near the core. The radiation alarm screamed a warning. Alistair, ignoring the escalating threat, began the meticulous work of extraction. This wasn't a job for brute force. It required the steady, respectful hands of an engineer. Just as he sealed the protective container, Jana's comms flared to life. T-Vec's dry voice was laced with an uncharacteristic strain. Alistair, I found the life sign. It's a single Solari larva. They are a rare bioluminescent species, highly sensitive to light and motion. It's been abandoned, left in a broken nutrient bath. The drone cannot safely extract it. It needs to be held. If I move the lantern, we lose our rendezvous window and we might not make it back to the hearth in time to stabilize the field. The choice was agonizing, a razor's edge of morality. The strand, the key to the stability of thousands, was in his hand. The fragile, unknown Solari larva was across the station, requiring direct, personal intervention. Alistair looked at the mending strand in the container. It was a material designed to dampen emotion, to create a necessary protective distance. He looked at Jana, her face still pale from the psychic feedback, clinging to the small wooden bird. He realized the true mending strand wasn't the metal, it was the connection itself. Jana, you take the strand, he said, his decision crystallizing into a calm, hard certainty. Get back to the lantern. T-Vec, prepare the shuttle for immediate departure and initiate the strand's integration into the field when Jana arrives. I'm going to Alpha 4. Alistair, you can't. The reactor is destabilizing. The time window is closed. You'll be stranded. Jana's voice was high with protest. I have to, Jana, he said, turning to run. Tell Kyle I'll finish the Starlink. Tell the commander that humanity isn't defined by its boundaries, but by its reach. You need to keep the ship sane enough for us to meet again. Go. He ran, leaving Jana and the strand behind, towards the distant, faint distress signal. He was trading the safety of thousands for the life of one small, unknown being. When Alistair reached Alpha 4, the atmosphere was thick and corrosive. The Solari larva was a tiny, pulsing knot of soft blue light shivering inside a cracked containment unit. He realized that this wasn't just a rescue. It was an act of profound trust. He had no suitable equipment. To save it, he would have to remove his own helmet and expose the larva to his atmosphere, risking his life on the chance the larva was adaptable. Taking a deep, shaky breath, Alistair unsealed his helmet. The air rushed out, replaced by the choking metallic tang of the station's decay.
The sudden, brutal pull of the anomaly was a physical manifestation of the Veil Scar's consuming void. Alistair spiraled toward the rupture, the Solari larva clinging to his exposed hand. His lungs burned, the metallic air searing his throat. He closed his eyes, accepting the end, but still clutched the tiny light of the larva. Suddenly, a massive, resonant surge struck him. It was the full, undampened power of the Cathara's collective emotional field, focused, magnified by the psychic instability of the space, and channeled across the light years by the now stabilized mending strand. But it was not fear. Jana and T-Vec, having quickly stabilized the main field, had also used the strand to send a signal, a wave of sheer, focused determination and love. They had shown the Cathara the image of their engineer, sacrificing everything for a single lost life,
and the empathic species responded with a unified, breathtaking act of will. The surge wasn't a gentle wash, it was a powerful, psychic hammer of unity. Alistair felt every single soul on the Arcturus Hearth, the weary Xylos, the shimmering Aethera, the fearful Cathara, and his human crewmates poured into him. He wasn't one man anymore. He was a conduit for 1,000 beating hearts. The power of this collective will manifested in an astonishing display. The Arcturus Hearth, still light years away, fired its antiquated, rarely used grav winch. The beam, a massive, articulated field, snapped into existence. It wasn't aimed at the station, which was collapsing, but at the largest, most stable piece of floating debris near Alistair. Propelled by this collective focus, Alistair, despite his lack of air and his spiraling descent, used his last ounce of human strength, amplified by the psychic surge, to launch himself toward the debris. He caught the massive, slow-moving piece of metal just as the grav winch locked onto it and was instantaneously yanked free from the black hole's hungry grasp. He hit the wall of the lantern's docking bay with a jarring thud. The airlock hissed shut an instant before the whole of Sorrow's End imploded into a silent, cosmic firework. He was alive. He gasped for air, his hand still gently cupping the Solari larva, which pulsed a bright, happy gold. "You absolute, reckless, brilliant fool," came Tuvik's voice, a dry sob crackling over the comms. "You taught them what humanity really is." Alistair, leaning against the cold metal, simply smiled, a shaky, exhausted, triumphant smile, cradling the tiny life he had risked everything for. He had not just rescued a creature, he had proven the worth of 1,000 souls. The journey back to the Arcturus Hearth was conducted in a profound, reverent silence. Alistair was patched up, the Solari larva was placed in a custom-built, low-light habitat, and the mending strand was fully integrated. The ship's emotional dampening field was operational, but now it felt different. It was no longer a cage against feeling, but a gentle filter, a shared consciousness of necessary calm. Alistair returned to his cabin, the familiar scent of ozone a comforting blanket. He pulled out the small, wooden starling. With steady, unhurried hands, he finished the final, delicate details of the wings, the small, proud head. The act of creation was a meditative counterpoint to the cosmic chaos he had just escaped. He carried the starling to Kyle, who sat in the communal area. The Cathara's skin was a steady, warm, healthy amber, the color of quiet resilience. Alistair presented the carving. Kyle took it, his long, delicate fingers tracing the smooth wood. Kyle spoke, his voice a soft, low vibration that hadn't been heard since he had been rescued. "The parts are safe, engineer. The ship is safe." Alistair knelt beside him. "The ship is safe because of the parts, Kyle. Every single one, even the smallest, newest life like the Solari larva." Kyle looked at the starling, then at Alistair, and his skin flashed a momentary, brilliant, joyful white. It was an overwhelming expression of gratitude and understanding. The impact of Alistair's solitary, compassionate act reverberated through the Arcturus Hearth. The refugees, who had previously seen humanity as merely one of many desperate species, now saw something more. a species defined by a reckless, beautiful capacity for individual sacrifice for the sake of an unknown other. Commander Alara found Alistair in the engine room, polishing a conduit with almost unnecessary care. "Alistair," she said, her voice filled with a new kind of respect. "Your act, it did more than just save that one life. The psychic surge, the moment of absolute unity, it gave us something we've lacked: purpose." The Cathara collective emotional map of the event was so clear, so focused on your determination, that we've used the residual resonance to recalibrate the grav winch. It's no longer a rescue tool, engineer, it's a compass. She showed him the new navigation schematics. The grav winch, which had saved his life, had captured the imprint of the united will of the ship's inhabitants. It was now capable of pointing toward not a geographical coordinate, but a stable emotional signature. A place of cosmic safety, away from the Veil Scar, a place where a new home could be built. "We will no longer navigate by stars or quadrants, Alistair," Alara concluded, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "We will navigate by hope, the unified collective hope of the Hearth." The Arcturus Hearth turned its great weathered hull away from the chaos and toward the unknown. The low, crystalline song of Kyle's instrument drifted through the corridors, no longer a plea against silence, but a gentle, steady, defiant anthem. Alistair stood at the bridge window, looking out into the silent black void. He was just a maintenance engineer, yet he had engineered the deepest, most necessary thing of all: connection. The ship sailed on, not into darkness, but into a future charted by the simplest yet most powerful force in the cosmos: the shared beating heart of a united and compassionate community. The universe is vast, and its cold logic often demands silence and surrender. But tonight, sleep easy, knowing that no matter the darkness, humanity will always find a way to rebuild the broken places, not with steel and fire, but with the quiet, persistent promise